Good evening, and welcome to the second episode of An Hour in Politics. My name is Dylan Harrison.
And my name is Jordan Main.
Tonight, we'll discuss the Labour Party conference held this week in Liverpool, and the detrimental effects the conflict in Gaza is having on Scottish First Minister Humza Yousaf.
As well as discussing Rachel Reeves and Jeremy Hunt's conference speeches and what it might mean for the British economy moving forward.
Also, we'll share our thoughts on the Starmer speech Invader and his glittery 2 seconds of fame.
All that coming up in the next hour.
This is An Hour in Politics. Well, good afternoon, Joel. Are we on Sunday now?
It is Sunday.
We are on Sunday. Happy Sunday. How are you doing? How's your week been?
It's been all right. Normal week, same old, same old. No football, international breaks. I've been a little bit bored, but it gives me more time to focus on politics, doesn't it? So here I am with you.
Considering your life is revolved around football, I can imagine you've got quite the hole to fill at the moment.
Yeah.
How's life been with college?
College has been fine. It's been, I mean, it's getting better and better each week,
Good.
But
Good.
Yeah, that's about
it. It's just the initial, the initial dedication to going, which I just, oh god,
I know.
Like getting up at 6:30 is.
No. I don't have to do that, so I could.
You roll out of bed at like 8:30.
Yeah,
right?
8:30. Yeah.
Ridiculous. Anyway, this week on An Hour in Politics, we're going to discuss quite a lot of things actually this week.
We are.
Ranging from the party conference that Labour had this week in Liverpool, Humza Yousaf, that really touching actually what's going on with him at the moment. Rachel Reeves, Jeremy Hunt, the Starmer speech Invader, which I just think is we'll discuss that. All that and more in the next hour, Joel. So where would you like to start?
Well, I reckon if we're going to talk about the conference, we should start right at the start of the main event of the Labour conference, which, of course, is Keir Starmer's speech, of course, the current leader of the Labour Party and Prime Minister hopeful. Probably going to be the Prime Minister after the next election. Yeah, the polls say so. So should we just start right at the start of the speech, which didn't go exactly to plan for Starmer, did it?
It didn't, but did it work in his favour? I think so.
Yeah, I think so. I also think he handled it so well. Like, other politicians, when they get things chucked on them, go completely out of composure. And he just
awful. Stood there, he took his jacket off, he wiped his hands, and he said a line, which I think genuinely, there is no... I was listening to The Rest is Politics on the way home from college. I think it was on Friday night. Yeah. And Rory Stewart asked Alistair Campbell if the protester thing was staged just for the line, protest or power, that is why we changed our party. What a line. I mean, to say that off the cuff and just... He's completely right. Under Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour Party was known for its... rebellious sense of being. It was just a very unhinged party. It weren't together and it was erratic. Whereas now Keir Starmer is bringing this argument. You either have that, no law and order, or you have a party that is ready for power. Yeah. And that he says why he changed our party. Really good way to start his speech.
Really good. What was the motive behind the Invader? What was his? Was it? I think I had it up earlier.
I heard he was a Just Stop Oil guy, but then I also heard that was false and that he weren't a Just Stop Oil guy. Starmer was just a few words into a speech when he was confronted by a protester scattering glitter and shouting incoherently towards the microphone. It gave the Labour leader a chance to shed his jacket, brush himself off, and deliver the well-judged line, protest or power, that's why we changed our party.
So it was a 28-year-old man called... Yaz Ashwami. I probably pronounced that wrong. Ashmawi, I think, actually. I think it was something to do with changes to the parliamentary democracy that he was trying to do.
Oh, yeah, I heard him shouting a few things.
Yeah, he had a shirt on. I can't remember what the shirt said, and it doesn't seem to say it on BBC News, but it was something along the lines of give people the power or something, wasn't it? Yeah.
Right, okay, interesting. Here's one thing I'm curious about. Why choose the leader of the opposition to do this and not the Prime Minister?
Yeah, that is strange. I don't know why. Maybe he just thinks that that he can make more of a change on a Labour government. But
maybe he's conscious of the fact that Keir Starmer is more likely to be the next Prime Minister.
True. He has now backed down. He said it was he crossed the line and he has apologised. He said the officers held him in custody for 22 hours, but they were very respectful and that's it. He was just arrested, of course, on suspicion of breaching the peace over the protest. So,
Right.
yeah.
I mean, let's face it, there are better ways to get your message across than to do
Of
that to
course,
someone who
yeah,
is the leader of an opposition party with no
yeah,
power. But I think the protester will know full well, and I think Starmer's quite aware of this.
yeah.
Probably worked in his favor.
It did
Probably
completely.
did.
And what it's
Yeah.
also done, Dylan, is it's you know, everyone's going to see this on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and now the Labour conference is going to get even more views and
Yeah.
even more attention. So,
Yeah, you're completely right. So
yeah.
in hindsight, it's probably done Starmer a favor, I think.
Did you see
Probably
the
has.
clip of Rachel Reeves going, "Oh, for God's sake, as it happened?
No, I
Yeah.
haven't seen
Oh,
it.
I'll send it to you after the show. There's a clip of her in the audience getting very annoyed at the
She,
protest.
Rachel Reeves is a fantastic person. We're coming on
Yeah,
to discuss her a little bit later in the
yeah.
show.
It
But
angered a few
she,
people.
yeah, but understandably, right?
Yeah,
Because the party conference is
yeah, of
the
course.
big week. It's an important week. These politicians, these MPs, these shadow benchers, backbenchers, they all chip in to work together to create a week where they just show off their party to the entire nation and basically show why they deserve the power
Yes.
of the people. And so for your prime minister hopeful to be disrupted in such a way when he's about to make the most important speech of the week is unfair.
Yeah.
But especially because in the Labour Party, the Tory Party conference, where there is the power, all of the MPs there, all of the cabinet ministers, they are Secretary of State for the area
Yeah.
in the United Kingdom, not Labour. Labour just shout
Mm,
things that they believe and hope that it,
of course. Yeah.
gets across. So yeah, it's hard, but I
Yeah.
think when all the dust is settled, I think it has worked towards Labour.
Yeah, there's one thing I wanted to point out just before we move on to the next topic is
Mm-hmm.
if this isn't staged, which I think is probably the most likely scenario,
Yeah.
he got on the stage way too easily. Like
Oh yeah,
he literally just
100%.
walked on there. It could have easily been acid or something. Do you know what I mean? It's just
100%.
like
And I will take personal responsibility for this. This was held in the exhibition centre in Liverpool, and
yeah,
I've been there many times. And to me, the security was evidently underwhelming. Evidently, there was an issue there in security. And you're right; it could have been anything. It could have
yeah,
been a knife. It could have been a gun. It could
exactly.
have been
Yeah,
acid. Could have been anything. And so that needs to be looked at. And so for
it
that, I
does.
take some responsibility. And I think, okay, that isn't the best isn't the best light for us to be
Yeah,
shown in. But thank God it was nothing harmful and it was just a bit of glitter. Thank God.
thank God.
Should we talk about a more open structure of the Labour Party conference and some of the really common themes we've seen throughout? The
Yeah,
main thing I want to talk about is the very, very, very consistent mention of cost of living.
right.
Consistent. Starmer mentioned it. Of course, Rachel Reeves mentioned it. Angela Rayner, most of her speech was revolved around her upbringing, as per usual. It seems every speech she gives is about her upbringing, and about the cost of living and how she made her way into politics. But Starmer touched on his own background in his speech to reminisce about meeting the woman who was a single mother while he was on Family in the Lake District. He said the woman told him she was in survival mode due to the financial pressure she was facing, with no scope to think about the future. It's devastating, isn't it, Joel? Some of the situations some people in this country
Of
find
course,
themselves in.
of course. And I just hope that something happens soon that fixes it. But this whole cost of living crisis just seems like, I don't know, maybe it's because we're currently, not moving anywhere, but it just seems like it's never going to end.
Well, we're in a place of stagnation, right?
Yeah.
Where
Stagnation is the
nothing's
perfect word
happened.
for it. Yeah.
Nothing's
Yeah.
happening. The
Nothing at all.
interest rates are still too high. So we've got interest rates that are too high. We've got obviously energy bills are through the roof, which Rishi Sunak and most of the world, we all are struggling in that due to the horrific war in Ukraine at the moment. But there doesn't seem to be light at the end of this tunnel, Joe. There really doesn't seem to be light there, and we're in a place where we need something to happen. We really do. Starmer said about this woman in the Lake District, I could see the hurt in her eyes as she told me. That's
Yeah.
what this cost of living crisis does. and he said, "It intrudes on the little things we love, whittles
It
away at our joy."
it
It's bold.
it's clearly a massive attacking point on the Labour Party conference as well, is the cost of living crisis and the way the Conservatives are handling it, isn't it? Like, that is a key focus of the whole party, yeah.
One of their main goals this week in this party conference was to really highlight the devastation of the Conservative Party.
And how Conservative is the party to vote for the people. Sorry, not Conservative. Labour is the party to vote for the people. You know,
yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
that's what they say. Yeah, we have got. I was just gonna talk about how we've got some points here on what Keir Starmer said, but if you got something else on that point, then
sorry, I just want to mention two more things about the overall Labour Party conference as a whole. One, Labour really seemingly are trying to appeal to Tory voters who are willing to switch. Now, let me just back this up a little bit. Starmer, obviously, we know, is going for Prime Minister in the next general election. And so he knows that in order to win a big majority, to be able to push these things he wants forward, he needs to appeal to voters who are willing to switch between Tory or Labour. Now, some people who are watching this may wonder how voting works. Some people are dead set on a party. So some people will only vote Labour no matter who the leader is or no matter what their pledges. Some will only vote Conservative no matter who is leading them, no matter the mess they're causing, no matter. Some, the majority, I must say, from where I'm from anyway, are in the middle. And they look at the situation they're in, for example, cost of living crisis, energy crisis, and they look at the parties who have a chance of winning and what they offer and what their solutions to fix these issues are. And I have a little phrase for this, and I call it swing voting. Whether that's politically accurate or not, I don't know. But there are a bunch of people in the population who will switch between parties depending on what they offer. And so that is why I think Labour realised they must appeal to these voters.
Yeah.
So Labour have said Labour will fight for the union. It will defend family life. It will keep taxes down and will be pro-business. After Starmer's speech, Labour spinners sent out a series of congratulatory quotes from businesses, almost all of which came from the housing industry. That's another thing. Housing was a huge thing in the conference.
Oh, of course, always, every time, yeah. Do you think it's a good thing though? I'm sure it's angering a lot of people that the Labour Party are trying to appeal to Conservative voters. I think that's one of the biggest public critiques of Keir Starmer, is that he
straddles the line, right, between Conservative and Labour. But is that a bad thing?
I don't know, and I'm not the one to sit here and say if he does do that. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just people's opinion,
personal preference, right?
Yeah. He's in the Labour Party. He's creating, along with loads of people, the manifesto for the Labour Party, and that's as far as I really care, to be honest.
But you do have a valid point. Where's the line between?
Yeah, I know. And
staying red and going blue and red.
Because there's such a massive difference between Jeremy Corbyn's Labour and Keir Starmer's Labour. Like, it's ridiculous.
Huge. It's like
and there were, of course, because Starmer came in 2020, didn't he? There's still, of course, Corbyn MPs, isn't there? Because the last election was Jeremy Corbyn as the leader of the Labour Party.
Yeah, where they lost their biggest defeats.
Yeah, but I remember back in February, I remember being on holiday and texting you this. He said something like, the old Labour's gone, and if anybody disagrees with this, then they can be shown the door. He wrote a letter out to all the MPs. So the biggest names I can think of, this might be just me making things up, but like Zara Sultana, obviously massive Jeremy Corbyn ally.
Huge.
Do you think she'll go for the Labour Party again? I don't know. It's it's just
Keir Starmer's in a position where he has, in my opinion, chosen his stance, and it's vitally important he does so. He is either doing one of two things. He is appealing to the Corbyn MPs to keep his party together, or he is realising that the country needs stability, and he's going for the people. I think he's chosen the people. That letter makes it clear he's chosen the people, and I don't think that's a bad decision. I think Corbyn Labour in power would have been detrimental, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it would have done. I think there was a lot of media attack on Jeremy Corbyn as well.
Yeah, of course.
So it's
Naturally.
hard. It's obviously it's massive hypothetical. So it's really hard to say what would have happened if Corbyn became prime minister. I think there would have been a lot of conflict. This is just me being maybe a bit ignorant, but I think there'd be a bit of conflict between the prime minister and the royal family, because Jeremy Corbyn does not agree with the royal family.
Well, I mean, he's the most left we've had in a while. He's the most left.
People are, every politician's entitled to have their own view on the royal family, but in this day and age, I'm not sure if we need that much of a dramatic change in the way that politicians and prime ministers think. You never know. He could have become prime minister and then just, remained neutral, didn't say anything, just got on with the Queen, just spoke to the Queen, and kept quiet.
Now the king, of course.
Now the king, but it was the Queen when he was trying to be prime minister, wasn't it?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. One more thing I've got to say about the whole party as a conference, and then we'll move the conferences. The party as a conference. No. The conference for the Labour Party. And that was, I mean, this happens in every conference against other parties, but they just bash the Conservatives. I mean,
they did.
What more do you expect?
They did bash the Conservatives.
Starmer said, "I'm beginning to see why Liz Truss won," when referencing Rishi Sunak and his party. He also warned of the Tory party that, quote, has so completely severed its relationship with. No, sorry, it's not severed. That has so completely severed its relationship with the future that it's prepared to scorch the earth just to get at us.
Yeah.
They will be dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
They really went for them.
And it's the perfect time for an opposition government to go for the government. I know I'm changing the subject, but this is 30 seconds. Reform UK at their conference this week as well.
They did. And Widdicombe, former Conservative MP, was there.
Yes. Nigel Farage stood up there, said he's not rejoining the Conservative Party. That's probably the biggest highlight from the whole thing. I think it's just interesting, these two parties on different sides of the spectrum, but both advertising themselves as a party of change, were having their conference at the same time. I think, surprisingly, although they are so different, there's probably quite a lot of similarities between both of the way that they are attacking the current government. Obviously, Reform UK agree with what other Conservatives do, and if they don't agree, they think that it's not far right enough. You know what I mean? So it's completely different. But
we're on a sliding spectrum, right? You've got Labour, who are kind of left central, right?
Yes.
Conservative, who are right central, with the exception of Suella Braverman, because she's towards Reform UK. If Simon gives her the sack, she's going right to Reform UK. It's I've called it already. And also, don't forget, Nigel Farage said he would join the Labour Party if Suella Braverman was Prime Minister.
Yes, that's true.
Deadly combination. Just putting that out there. So then we have Labour, Conservative, Reform UK, and so I think Reform UK and Labour are in a similar position in their hatred toward the Conservative, and their clear view of hatred towards the Conservatives based on what they've done to the country. But obviously their opposing views are on things like immigration, border control, all that kind of stuff, like genders, all that kind of stuff. But you are right. There is some similarity in their distaste towards the Conservatives.
Here's Absolutely. The thing. I know it's a bit early, but I think here's a couple of election predictions, right?
Okay.
Obviously, I think most people in the country will agree that Labour are going to win.
Yes.
And of course, it's the way politics work. Conservative will be the second party. They'll be the opposition party. But I reckon Reform UK will go either one of two ways. They'll either shock everyone and get a crazy amount of seats for an underdog party, or they'll flop completely and they'll get like one seat max.
Like
there's no in between. Yeah, exactly. There's no in between.
Yeah.
I promise you.
They'll either do really well, they'll appeal to a lot of people, or a lot of people will view them as this looks quite dangerous.
Because
and will
I
avoid
think
them like the plague.
A lot of people are saying that, of course, we'll have the Conservative Party as the main opposition, but it'll be a lot closer than it has been in recent years between the second two parties. But
Lib Dem have a good chance. Yeah.
Lib Dem always have a good chance. Yeah, but they I think it's going to be a really interesting election this year. Well, next year.
Are we allowed to say that we're going to be live streaming the election?
Well, if everything goes to plan and we continue this. We all
Yeah, that's the plan.
live
Yeah.
streaming the
Okay.
election. Yeah.
So there we go. So the plan is to continue doing these weekly episodes if there is enough political interest to do so, and then
Yeah.
of course, election night is general election night is the biggest night in the political
Yeah.
year. So
It's going to be
we'll
like
be making a big deal of it.
it'll be a lot less serious than this. It'll just be me and Dylan waffling and then
Oh,
reacting to the election results. There'll
yeah,
probably be a lot of anger and
yeah,
humor, and
yeah.
we'll be
But that's
going
to be
through
expected,
the
right?
night. So
Yeah,
once it gets to like
yeah.
4 a.m, we might get a bit delirious. So
Yeah,
yeah.
naturally. Shall we move on to where would you like to move on to now, Joe?
So we're still on Starmer's speech, but I feel like we've kind of covered it enough, don't you? I think.
One more point about Starmer. This was
Yeah.
by far the best speech he's delivered
Oh
since
yeah,
he became leader.
100%. And I think people who don't like Starmer agree with that. It was a good speech. Yeah.
It was good. He
Yeah.
did himself proud for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Shall we move on to talk about Reeves and Hunt?
Rachel Reeves and Jeremy Hunt. Yeah, we can talk about that.
Cool. Okay, so obviously Rachel Reeves, Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Yeah.
She will be, if Keir Starmer wins the general election, she'll be the first ever female Chancellor of the Exchequer. And she was endorsed by a Conservative employed former leader of the Bank of England. I think that's accurate. I think, which is a huge low blow to the Conservatives, because someone the Conservatives brought into the Bank of England is now saying, no, not the Conservatives.
Yeah.
Rachel Reeves is the
A
one.
lot of them do that. I mean, this is an MP, but there was an MP switch this week, wasn't there? It wasn't anything to do with Labour. It was SNP to Conservative. Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course,
up in Scotland.
Is it Boris Johnson's ex-wife who's now become whistleblower advisor for the Labour Party? Something like that. Yeah, it is.
Whoa.
I think it is. Yeah. It's talking about how to talk, like how to recognize domestic abuse, which that's Boris Johnson's ex-wife. Do you know what I mean? I'm not.
Well, let's not draw similarities there, Joe. That's dangerous.
But it's just a very interesting move for someone like that.
There may be a trace there. I don't know. So reforms that Rachel Reeves will bring in after her speech at the Labour Party conference held in Liverpool. Reeves has vowed to accelerate the building of critical infrastructure for digital connectivity, laboratories and energy to drive growth, create jobs and unlock private sector investment. The reforms will include things such as speeding up the planning for critically important infrastructure by updating all national policy statements which set out what types of projects the country needs within the first 6 months of a new Labour government. Also include ensuring local communities get things back by providing businesses and communities with a menu of potential incentives, which could include cheaper energy bills. So basically, let us build things which can help the economy, and we'll give you something back.
Yeah, exactly.
Quite clever, right?
It is clever. And I think of course Labour have always been the party of we're going to tax these people this amount so that we can put that amount back into the working people. Okay.
Have you heard Starmer's NHS plan?
I haven't. No. What is his NHS plan?
I'm not a fan of this idea, but I'm going to tell you anyway.
All right.
So he was on Sunday with Laura Kuenssberg, just before his speech, I believe it was, and they were speaking about this for a while. Basically, we knew this was going to happen for a long time. Starmer and Rachel Reeves are abolishing the non-dom tax status, which we knew because it's a loophole in the tax system. But Starmer's going to use that money to pay NHS doctors to work out of hours to reduce waiting lists. So, for example, he's going to pay them to work through the weekend. But Victoria Derbyshire came up with a very good point. She said to Starmer, how much are you going to pay them? He said it'll be a competitive wage. And she said, but will they earn more in the private sector? His answer was yes. So they're not going to do it. But then his argument against that was the doctors are just as keen as the government to reduce the waiting lists. But we all live in a cost of living crisis.
Yeah, it's also strange how he just speaks for all doctors. Does he know that they agree with that point that he just made?
He went to a hospital in London, and he's using that hospital seemingly to talk about the entire demographic of doctors. I'm not sure I think that policy is the right way to go, to be honest.
Yeah, look, to be honest, the whole NHS issue is a very, very difficult topic for me to talk about as a 16-year-old. But it desperately needs more money. That's just
well,
that money's going to come from is a matter for the government, isn't it? So,
I mean, his plan is to use the non-dom tax status money to pay doctors to work during the weekends out of doctor hours to reduce the waiting lists. We'll see if it works.
The two biggest problems with the NHS right now are lack of doctors and massive waiting lists. So if he thinks that's the way to fix it and it works, then
fair play.
Fair play, yeah.
The last Labour government delivered HS1 on time, under budget, and at a cost of £50 million per mile, comparable to France and Japan. Under the Conservative, HS2 has failed to be delivered and cost the taxpayer £400 million per mile, making it the most expensive railway ever. Reeves said the single biggest obstacle to building infrastructure, to investment and to growth is the country Conservative Party. They went against the Conservatives, didn't they, Joe?
Yes, they did. Yes.
What just went against it. She also went on to say Labour's task is to restore people's hope in politics. The hope that lets us face the future with confidence, with a new era of economic security, because there is no hope without security. You cannot dream big if you cannot sleep in peace at night. The peace that comes from knowing you have enough to put aside for a rainy day, and the knowledge that when you need them, strong public services will be there for you and your family. Listen, it's all well and good to be like, everything will get better. But ultimately, we can only judge policy when it's implemented, right?
That's the problem, isn't it? So I think that's why a lot of people are scared to allow a new party to go into the government, to be honest.
Because it could go wrong.
It could go wrong. But I honestly, Dylan, without sounding biased, I don't think it can get any worse than what's going on at the moment. And also, people
that's
need
factually proven, John.
Yeah. People need to, just trust that these policies are going to come to light.
Yeah.
And
Can we talk about housing for a second?
Housing, yeah, of course.
Yeah. So Labour have set out a huge plan for social housing. Really, really huge. They are hell-bent on creating a lot of new houses. She is playing. I'm just trying to find the notes that I made.
Yeah, there was this. I think the biggest, well, not the biggest complaint, but a very common complaint. There's actually a housing estate just down the road from where I live, a very new one, and they were promised shops, and those shops never came. It's just an empty lot where the shops are supposed to be, So it's just kind of like, a big deal. You've got a house, what's the big deal about a shop? But this estate isn't exactly in town. So, if you move to an estate that's advertising shops, you kind of expect there to be shops. And
yeah, 100%.
I think one thing that Labour did mention is primary schools, secondary schools, that kind of thing. They won't build new houses if there's not enough space in the secondary schools and primary schools. They need to build new primary schools and secondary schools.
Need new infrastructure.
Yeah. Like,
let's think about this logically, Joel.
Yeah.
If you have people living in houses and there's not enough places in a school for their children to go, that's broken.
I know it is. And another example, this estate near my house, they did build a primary school on that estate, so that solved that problem.
Yeah.
There's 2 secondary schools in my town, 2 state schools in my town, so it's not exactly a problem. But in other towns where it is, we need to build schools, simple as, and those need to be included in the plans for the new estates.
Keir Starmer said that the UK must, quote, get real about where we're going to build. He also said, to solve the housing crisis, Labour has pledged to review rules about building on the Green Belt. He's also said he's set a target of 1.5 million new homes over the first 5 years of his government, and would strengthen guidance to ensure developers included sufficient affordable housing. 1.5 million. I can also tell you as well, the last Labour government, so under Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, the number of home-owning households rose by 1 million. and has fallen by almost 200,000 since 2010. The proportion of people who own their own home is now at a 30-year low. It's not. We're not in a good place for home owning, are we, Joel?
No, we're not. And that just proves, Dylan, that Labour are focused on housing and have been for years. And I think that it's a good thing to be focused on. We need houses. Of course we do.
Living in the UK, you should be able to own your own house.
Yeah, you
should be able to own your own house. And the fact that there either A, isn't enough houses for you to own, or B, the prices are so extraordinarily high that people who work 5 days a week in well-paid jobs still can't afford to buy them is a disgrace. It really is a disgrace. So, of course, we've spoken about Rachel Reeves' plans. She wants to get Britain building again, of course, since we've spoke about. In 2012, for example, decision times for national infrastructure have decreased by 65%, and it now takes around 4 years for planning permission and for national infrastructure to be provided. She said Labour stands with the builders, not the blockers. So she wants to reduce the time it takes for national infrastructure to be built. She wants to reduce planning time. She wants to really streamline the process to get new houses built. But what did Jeremy Hunt say? What did Jeremy Hunt say in his speech? So, of course, we know that the Conservative Party conference was last week, of course.
Yeah, we spoke about that in the last episode.
Yeah, and Jeremy Hunt is the Chancellor at the moment, but
yep.
Do you feel a slight disconnect between Jeremy Hunt and Rishi Sunak?
I mean, I think before they fell out, there was a very clear partnership and friendship between Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak. Yeah. And also before they fell out, there was a clear partnership between Boris Johnson and Sajid Javid. But now, and I'd even say, although it was a disaster, Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng. But this duo, it's just not the same, is it? That just might be us not seeing it, but publicly, I don't think it's quite the same.
Let's talk about Gordon Brown and Tony Blair.
That's a perfect example. Yes.
Gordon Brown and Tony Blair were the closest two political powers in the entire world at one point, right?
Yeah, they were.
And ultimately, the only way to finish the story is by saying power got to their heads. And I've been watching documentaries about it. It became a toxic environment. As Chancellor of the Exchequer and as Prime Minister, you need to have a relationship in where it's sustainable. And the Chancellor needs to understand he's not there to become Prime Minister. His job is to secure the financial interests of the country, right? And I don't see in public, for example, I don't see Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt seemingly being combined. That you need to be one as Chancellor and Prime Minister, and they seem separated to me.
Yeah, I mean, the Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson example could just be because we were in a pandemic, and that's why we saw so much of them. But the Gordon Brown, Tony Blair, that was I've completely forgot about that. That was like
they were close as can be.
Yeah, it's like Ant and Dec of the politics. You know what I mean? It was so close. Yeah.
Jeremy Hunt announced that for the first time the national living wage will be raised above £11 an hour. But hate to break it to you, Jeremy Hunt, that weren't the government's decision, unfortunately. So he used his stage to announce, above £11 an hour, but that weren't your choice. The Board for Low Pay Commission have advised that they're suggesting an hourly rate of around £1.10 or above. So it weren't his decision anyway. So that this is another place of party politics. Oh my God, let's use something we have to do. Let's announce it like we're doing it just because we want to. No, you don't want to.
Yeah, it's bad, isn't it? Yeah.
You don't want to. We can also, he's freezing the civil service hiring, akin to one George Osborne, who we just mentioned. He brought in during the austerity years when he was Chancellor. Basically, what he's doing is he's not employing any more civil servants, and he's keeping it back to, I think it was pre-pandemic or pandemic levels. So he's not going to pay any more to employing new civil servants. Now, in my opinion, that's a practical solution to getting more money, because clearly they're in a position now where they have enough civil servants, so let's not employ any more. Let's put the money back into the country. Makes sense, right?
Yeah,
makes sense. So that one, I think I can kind of understand. Second bit that I want to talk about was that Chancellor Jeremy Hunt wants to introduce further sanctions on those who are on benefits and show little inclination to look for work. So, these sanctions already exist, but the Chancellor is looking at ways to really, really hammer it down. Now, Joe, what's your opinion on this? Now, this could be a fiery debate, actually. What's your opinion on the benefit system?
The benefit system, I think those who need benefits should get benefits. That's
Do you accept that there are fundamentally too many people in this country with the ability to work who don't?
Yeah, exactly. That is the bit, and that is annoyingly true, because it means that people can sit here and argue against the benefit system because of that. But I think people over exaggerate in their heads the amount of people who are on benefits that shouldn't be. But I think it's a lot. It's a lot more than it should be. It should be none. But I think people have this ideology that the majority of the country are on benefits.
Just sit there and do nothing.
Yeah. I don't really know where they get it from, to be honest. But,
not true. Not true. And it almost seemed in Jeremy Hunt's speech like that's what he was trying to imply. Like, not enough of the country work hard for the money they get, which is absolutely and utter bogus and not true. Let's all admit it. There is a small amount of the British population who abuse the countries we have. There are people in this world who live in countries where...
There's one woman who's had... Yeah, sorry, I thought you were done. Carry on, my bad.
Sorry. There are places in this world where if you don't work, you do not get money.
Yeah.
In this country, you are paid for your illness, which I think is fundamentally the right thing to do. But you can't have people taking advantage of that. And so I think for him to try and really streamline the sanctions in order to make sure people who can work are working, I think will only benefit business in the long run. I think that's the right decision.
There's a woman who's had so many children, like 12 children, something like that, and she's on benefits.
I remember seeing her on this morning.
And she's putting the money that she was getting on benefits into plastic surgery or something, wasn't she? It's just outrageous. That's just not right, in my opinion.
She also said publicly that she was only having children to get more money from benefits.
Yeah, it's shocking. It's absolutely shocking. She should just be... sadly, I don't think it's fair to strip her of benefits because the children need the money. It's not their fault that she's chosen to have that many children. But at the same time, they need to do it some other way. She doesn't deserve the money. I don't know.
Fundamentally wrong. And you're right in what you say. People abuse it. People abuse the power. She is clearly and utterly abusing her ability to have children for money. That's wrong, because that money is money that your parents go to work and have to pay.
Yeah.
Money that my parents go to work and have to pay. This isn't just money that goes into a pot right back into our lives. It goes into people's pockets who aren't willing to contribute themselves. Now, if you can't contribute, if you are physically disabled or you are in ill health, that's fine. But there are too many people who have almost found a benefit loophole where you can claim you can't work and claim other people's money.
It's true.
To me, it seems wrong. Should we? And I don't want to go too deep into this because personally, I feel slightly uncomfortable talking about it. I try and avoid conflict as much as I possibly can, but it really touched me, and this really makes me understand politics. They are real people. They are real people. Should we talk about Humza Yousaf for a small second?
Yeah, Humza Yousaf, he, of course, the current First Minister of Scotland, took over after Nicola Sturgeon resigned back in February. He is, I don't want to get it wrong, but he is, what descent is he? Because it was a fact that there were the two first Asian leaders in the UK. That's just a fact that I think was worth pointing out. I think it's a good thing, of course. I think it's good that we are having a multicultural society. I think it's good. He spoke out about his mother-in-law.
I've got your answer.
Have you?
He's the son of the first-generation Pakistani Punjabi Muslim immigrants. His father, Mayan Musafa Yousaf, was born in Punjab, Pakistan, and emigrated from the city with his family in the 1960s, eventually working as an accountant. That was off Wikipedia. That's not factually correct. I apologize.
And it's a good... I think
it's representation.
Yeah, having those, minority in this country, minority leaders is a very good way of saying, look, this is what the United Kingdom gave me. This is why I love the United Kingdom, and that's a very good way of of having a campaign. And I think it's just all good.
People who attack politicians based on their background, you are fundamentally flawed as a human being. It's not about where someone comes from that is important. It's about their drive and their passion to change our country, which is what we should be focusing on.
To be honest, I don't really focus too much on Scottish politics. I don't know much about. I don't know much about the SNP or anything. But I think that Humza Yousaf comes across as a really decent First Minister. Views aside, I think he's a good politician.
He fundamentally dedicated, and that is the most you can ask for. He is dedicated to the job. Joel, I've sent you the transcript of the interview at Channel 4. Do you want to read out the first little bit for us?
So Humza Yousaf said, of course, Humza Yousaf, we haven't actually said what it's about, have we? His mother-in-law is...
And his father-in-law.
And his father-in-law are in Gaza.
Stuck in the conflict.
Stuck in the conflict,
She posted a video. His mother-in-law posted a video. She's crying, just begging for help. It was really distressing.
It's very distressing. And he said in an interview with Channel 4 News, I'll be honest, I may be First Minister, but in this situation, I feel powerless. I can raise my voice, I can tell a story, but beyond that, I'm watching my mother-in-law and father-in-law suffer.
Isn't that sad?
It's very, very sad. And it's a very, very, very public, from a major politician in this country, reminder of the horrible things that are going on right now.
Sometimes we can feel detached, right?
We can.
And sometimes we can feel like it's a world away, but it's affecting people in our communities. And that's scary.
I say it's incredible that Humza Yousaf chose to share that video with the country. And I think it was, I don't want to say anything like, like ignorant people would say, he's only doing it for this and this, because he's not. I think he genuinely thought, this is distressing, I need to share this. And he did.
There's no gain in this for him.
No, there's no gain in this for him. But people will argue that. People will say, why are we bringing this into politics? Why are we bringing this here? He's only mentioning this to get his popularity up. I think that's ignorant. I think that's
stupid. Human.
Yeah, he's human, and his family are in this conflict.
Suffering. He spoke about his daughter. By the way, he did cry in one of the interviews he did about this, which is touching. He also spoke about his daughter asking when grandma will be home and whether she'll be home for Halloween. And he spoke about the sinking feeling he had when he told his daughter she'd be back for Halloween, and yet he weren't certain of that. And that really touched me. He's telling us, he's really affected. He's one of the most powerful people in the United Kingdom, and yet he is powerless. Do you want to finish the quote for us, Joel?
Your first instinct is to protect your family. That's what he said. And it's
which
also
is right.
Yeah, it's right, of course. 100%. He also said publicly on national TV, James Cleverly hasn't responded to my letter, of course, the Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom, or not contacted me directly, which I have to say I have some anger about. Was it Nicola Sturgeon who publicly said Liz Truss hadn't contacted her when she became Prime Minister? Does that not show
rings a bell.
The relationship between the Conservative government in the UK and the SNP government in Scotland is just not very healthy? Yeah,
it's dangerous. But also, how often do you see the Labour government in Wales having conversations with the Conservatives in the UK? That's not very often either. There seems to be a clear disconnect. Conservatives.
The problem is, it's not a problem because you should be able to vote for who you want. But the problem is, currently, we have a Labour government in Wales, an SNP government in Scotland, and a Conservative government in England, and the whole of the UK. That is just like, that's just not good. It's like three completely different parties. You know what I mean? It's just like
with completely different ideas.
Yeah, so that's why the relationship probably isn't the healthiest.
I mean, let's think about this for a second. Conservatives are unionists, and SNP want independence.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then you got Labour. Just chilling Mark Drakeford. I like Mark Drakeford. I think he's a very honest man. But you just got Mark Drakeford chilling in Wales. You know what I mean? But there you go.
It's difficult. What do you think about James Cleverly just refusing to answer his letter or contact him? Because let's be honest, there will be Scots stuck in Gaza.
Yeah, I wonder what the reason is, Dylan, to be honest. I don't know what the reason is. I don't know if he's just being annoying, if he's just being rude, if he's just being selfish, sorry. But there could also be a genuine reason. He is the foreign secretary, but I think that he should make it a priority to respond to the First Minister of Scotland, who sent him a letter.
Seems like party politics.
Party politics is another thing it could be, yeah.
Because I don't know how you can consciously sit there while a letter's been sent to you, knowing there are people in desperate need of your help, and choose not to. Where's the phone call? Phone him. Why isn't Rishi Sunak speaking to Humza Yousaf? Why? Why is there a disconnect? They may be SNP. You may not agree with their independent stance, but fundamentally, you're here to serve people. And right now, people are in danger. And it's fundamentally wrong, in my opinion. This needs fixing. And for Humza Yousaf to speak publicly on Channel 4 News about his distress and the hurt this is causing his family, I personally have admiration for that. Because I think it shows a lot about the pair. He could have sat there, Joel, held back the tears and just was like, yes, I want to deliver independence for Scotland. But he didn't. He said, right, okay, let's take a moment here and just recognise that I am human, right? And he's struggling, and that's okay to admit. And I respected that dearly.
I did too.
Dearly, very, very dearly.
I did too.
And it sets a dangerous precedent, because where is freedom in the world, Joel?
I know. It's just it's
scary.
It's scary, and it's just a very nice, close reminder of what is going on.
It's really, really scary. I've just seen a headline: MP Lisa Cameron forced into hiding after defecting from the SNP to the Conservative Party.
Oh my God, Dr. Cameron says she was told, "I hope you burn, and I hope someone throws a brick at you in the streets," among a series of streets received over email. Very specific threat, but that is horrible. No matter how much you disagree with the politician, that's just outrageous. That's just awful.
Forced into hiding.
So
sorry, that took me a bit off guard.
It is a very strange move, SNP to Conservative, to be honest. And she still supports Scottish independence.
But that's fundamentally not a reason for death threats.
No, of course not. Yeah, no, that goes without saying. Yeah, but I think it's a strange move for a politician.
Yeah. But I'm just going to say, just as me and Joel as a whole, me and Joel are close friends, and we have different political views in certain areas, but one thing we stand absolutely together on is that people should be able to pay their own way in life. People should be able to decide the future in which they live. People should be free, and we should be saying no to conflict. And any issues in Gaza, for example, in Ukraine, these innocent wars need to stop, and we stand definitely with Ukraine, and we stand wholeheartedly with the countries who are just in insufferable pain at the moment, and innocent people are getting hurt and killed and held hostage, and it's not nice. It's really, really awful. Just to wrap this episode up, Joel. It's been a stagnant week in politics.
It has, yeah.
Stagnant because the Labour Party conference happened, and then almost nothing else did.
Is PMQs back next week?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll talk about that next week.
I think.
Should be. It's got to be. Surely. It's been...
Soon. It's back.
Yeah,
soon.
yeah. Is that the end of the episode? Are we done?
I think we are done. I don't really have anything else to talk about.
Yeah, apologies. It's been a little bit shorter than usual. That's because
3 minutes.
It's been a stagnant week.
We're not going to sit here and delve into conversation that we don't feel is necessary or relevant to the podcast. So I would rather just say what we want to say and then leave it there. I've just noticed we're both wearing blue tops today.
Look at that. That's definitely 100% coordinated, everybody. That's how we do it, of course.
How ironic. We're wearing blue when we're talking about Labour.
Yeah, true. Okay, so next week, we are going to, of course, talk about the latest news in politics, if there is any. Probably go over PMQs, but we've also got a special subject, haven't we, Din, that we're going to talk about?
We have, yeah. So we discussed this. We really want to delve deep into the Boris Johnson resignation scenario.
And all of the massive conundrum of reasons that led to his resignation. We will plan the episode. We'll get it out next week. I'm telling you.
You don't want to miss that one.
Yeah, you don't want to miss that one. And if you think it's just because he had one party during lockdown, then watch next episode and you'll find out it's not. So
I mean, the amount of MPs and the amount
Yeah.
of Boris Johnson loyalists that he had resigning was genuinely nuts.
And a certain close friend of him doing some dodgy stuff that he covered up, and we'll get all into that next week. Tune in next week.
We will. I just want to say one more thing before we go. An hour in politics. The guest application form is still open. Our first episode, actually did much better than we expected it to.
Yes, it did.
Any people watching this, if you've got all the way to the end, wow, you're an impressive human being.
Yeah.
But apply for the podcast in the it's in the about section on our YouTube channel. There is a guest application form. It's bit.ly/ahip apply. We're on Instagram and Our In Politics. We're on Twitter, Our In Politics. We're here on YouTube and Our In Politics. Tell your friends. Request to be on the podcast. Come and share your views, your political views with us. Thank you for tuning in. Joel, it's been a pleasure as always to conversate with you this afternoon.
Thanks for joining me again.
And we will see you all next week for a special episode about Boris Johnson and PMQs, hopefully, and everything else in the world of politics. Have a great rest of your weekend, and we will see you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.